Have you ever felt like you had to keep adapting all the time just so you wouldn't bother anyone? Like just existing was too much? This is Ethan's story, but it could just as easily be yours or someone you love, even if they haven't realized it yet. Ethan grew up in a house that looked totally normal from the outside. Mom and dad were around, he had two siblings, and they always had meals together. But on the inside, it was a whole different vibe. His mom, exhausted and overwhelmed, spent her days handling everything on her own. His dad was one of those does his duty kind of guys, but he didn't talk, didn't hug, didn't ask questions. Everything was very proper, very practical, and really quiet. Ethan was the youngest, and the youngest always show up when the grown-ups are already way too tired. Even before he learned how to read, he learned how to read the mood in the house. If his dad slammed the door, he already knew today's not a day to make noise. If his mom sighed too loud, he wouldn't ask for anything, not even water. The first moment that really left a scar was simple, but it stuck. Ethan was 4, and he wanted to show off his new drawing. He ran up to his mom, all excited, tugged on her shirt, and said, "Mom, look what I made." She was on the phone, and without looking, lightly slapped his hand and said, "Go away, Ethan, not now." He backed off. His heart started racing. It wasn't the slap that hurt. It was the "not now." It felt like just being there was wrong. Just wanting to be seen was too much. That night, he sat in the corner of the living room watching his brothers playing with their dad. No one called him over. No one asked if he wanted to join. He just sat there, small and quiet, and decided maybe it was better not to expect anything. At 5, he spilled juice on the clean tablecloth. His mom, stressed out, snapped, "You're always in the way. It's like you do it on purpose." He didn't say a word, just stared at the stained cloth, trying to figure out how to fix it. He learned that being a bother was unforgivable. At 6, a teacher said in front of the whole class, "Ethan's smart, but he never speaks up. It's like he's scared to talk." But really, he wasn't scared to talk. He was scared to mess up, to be laughed at, to disappoint. Because at home, any mistake added more weight. He started to link love with performance. If he got a good grade, he'd hear, "Good job." If he messed up, he got silence. At 7, during a parent-teacher meeting, the teacher said Ethan was very quiet, and his dad replied, "Better that than being a troublemaker." On the way home, Ethan stayed silent in the back seat and thought, "If I keep being quiet, maybe they'll keep liking me." But being too quiet meant no one noticed when he needed help. At 8, a kid at school bullied him for days, kicked his backpack, hid his pencil case. Ethan didn't tell anyone. When he finally told the teacher, she said, "That's just kids playing, Ethan. Don't take it so seriously." So he got it. Even when he spoke up, no one really listened. At 9, he had a high fever and felt awful in the middle of the night. He called his parents. His dad, annoyed, said, "Like, we don't already have enough to deal with. Now you too?" That stuck with him. The feeling of being a burden. The wound kept growing silently, and by the time it fully formed, Ethan didn't even notice. But it started shaping everything. In his teenage years, he became the typical nice guy. The one who helps everyone, lends stuff, goes along with plans he doesn't even like, listens to everyone's problems, but never talks about his own. But behind all that kindness, there was fear. Fear of being rejected if he said no. Fear of not being enough. Fear that if he showed who he really was, no one would stick around. At 13, some kids started making fun of the way he talked. He was calmer, more introspective. He spent weeks practicing lines in the mirror, trying to sound more confident. At 14, he had a group of friends, but always felt like he was the last one on their list. If he wasn't around, no one noticed. When he spoke, sometimes no one even responded. He started laughing at his own humiliation, making jokes about himself. It was an unconscious way to stay part of the group, even if it was just out of pity. At 15, he fell for a girl at school. Never told her. But once, just to test the waters, he complimented her hair. She laughed, said thanks, and later told the other girls. Ethan heard giggles, mean comments. He felt ashamed of himself. Thought, I'm not desirable. Not even when I try. People take me seriously. At 16, he tried to join a new friend group. He was nice, did favors, adjusted himself. Until one day, he overheard one of them say, "Ethan's a good guy, but he's kind of boring." That one stung, because he was trying so hard to fit in, and still, it wasn't enough. At 17, something happened that stuck with him. At his high school graduation, everyone was paired up, taking photos, hugging, saying their goodbyes. He stood off to the side, alone, waiting for someone to call him over. No one did. He went home with his suit wrinkled and eyes full of tears, and made himself a promise. I'll never rely on anyone again to feel important. That was the start of the mask. As an adult, Ethan had become a master of fitting in. He was the model employee, always available, never complained, took on other people's tasks, handled everything. But inside, he was burning out. At his first steady job when he was 21, his manager said, "You're great, Ethan. Chill, no trouble at all." He smiled on the outside, but inside, he felt invisible. He worked harder than everyone else, got things done, but the recognition never came. Because when you go out of your way to never be a burden, people stop noticing you. At 23, he got into a relationship. At first, things seemed fine, but little by little, he noticed his partner was calling all the shots, what they did, who they saw, where they ate, and he went along with it. He was afraid of being difficult, of starting conflict. When he finally tried to speak up, she said, "You've changed. You used to be so chill. Now it's like everything bothers you." He backed off, went back to the mask. Being easygoing felt safer than being honest. At 25, he went through something at work. A coworker called him out in a meeting, blaming him for a mistake. He knew it wasn't his fault, but he stayed quiet. He was scared to push back, scared of seeming ungrateful. So he chose to carry the blame in silence. He left that meeting shaking, stomach in knots, and thought, how long am I going to keep swallowing everything just to avoid rejection? He started having anxiety attacks, woke up with a tight chest, was scared to speak, and the worst part, he started doubting himself. At 27, his girlfriend at the time broke up with him, saying, "I need someone who knows who they are. With you, I feel like I'm always talking to a mirror. You just reflect whatever I want." That one hurt more than any breakup before, because it was true. Ethan didn't know who he was. At 28, he opened up to a friend. "I feel empty, like I only exist to be tolerated. I've never felt chosen." And his friend honestly said, "Maybe it's time you chose yourself, man." That hit hard. Ethan realized he'd spent his whole life trying to be loved without ever loving himself. He decided to get help. Therapy was rough at first. He dug up buried memories, felt anger at his childhood, anger at his parents, anger at himself. But for the first time, he let himself feel, without filtering. He started saying no, felt guilty a lot, but he learned to sit with that guilt, to see that it came from the little kid still scared of being left behind. He started drawing again. It was hard, felt like a waste of time, but he did it anyway. He drew his pain, his masks, the different versions of himself. He had setbacks. There were days he wanted to give up, but he kept going. These days, he still gets scared, but he doesn't abandon himself just to avoid being abandoned. He checks in with himself, and when he notices he's shrinking again, he stops, breathes, shows himself some care. The wound of rejection doesn't vanish overnight, but once it's seen, it stops running your life, and that changes everything. Ethan doesn't live to be accepted anymore. He lives to be real. And in that truth, he finally found the love he spent his whole life chasing from others. What you just heard isn't just Ethan's story. It's the story of so many people who grew up trying to be good enough just so they wouldn't be left behind. People who learned way too early to stay quiet in order to keep love around, who got used to watching more than speaking, agreeing more than expressing, smiling when, deep down, everything was screaming. People who developed an almost invisible skill, the constant need to adjust, like love was something you had to earn, not something you just deserved. The wound of rejection doesn't show up in loud ways. It hides in the small ways you give up on yourself, in the message you don't send because you're afraid it'll be too much, in the opinion you hold back to avoid conflict, in the favor you say yes to even when you're exhausted, in the cry for help that never leaves your lips because you think it'll just get in the way. And that's how, without even noticing, you start fading a little more each day. But maybe, just maybe, you're starting to see it now. And that's the first step on a whole new path, realizing there's a pain you've been carrying that was never yours to hold in the first place. When you recognize that wound, you get the chance to do things differently. And doing things differently doesn't mean becoming a whole new person overnight. It means first noticing when you're abandoning yourself. It means pausing, breathing, and asking honestly, what do I need right now? It's learning to listen to yourself before expecting others to hear you. It's saying small no's even if you're shaking inside. It's sending that honest message even if you're scared of the response. It's learning to stay by your own side even when the world feels far away. Maybe you're still wearing that mask of acceptance today. Maybe you smile too much, agree too much, push yourself too hard. But maybe, just maybe, you're tired of it. And if that tired feeling is visiting you right now, know this. It means something in you wants to be reborn. It's not weakness, it's growth. It's your body and your soul saying, I don't want to live like this anymore. You don't need to be more than you are. You don't need to fit into expectations that only pull you further from your real self. You just need to allow yourself to be whole and offer yourself the same care you've always given everyone else. Healing is slow, but it's possible. And it often begins in moments just like this. You, alone, in silence, listening to a story and realizing it's talking about you. So if this video touched you in any way, if it helped you see even a small piece of your own story, like it, leave a comment below, and share it with someone who's lived or is still living this quiet pain of rejection. And subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because there's so much more content coming to help you build your emotional freedom with patience and honesty. You deserve to see yourself. You deserve to stay by your own side. And this journey can start right now.